Ubuntu magazine is the nature conservation magazine that you want to read. Every quarter, in February, May, August, and November, a new issue comes live, which means that the year is filled with stories. In each magazine, you can find about 10 stories from the people on the front lines of conservation. You can hear about their challenges, their wins, and also their day to day tasks. What do they do to keep the world beautiful and a biodiverse place? Alongside that, we also have our recurring columns, such as the regular column, the new to nature, endangered species, and of course, our beautifully illustrated infographic. As you can hear, there is lots to discover and hopefully something that you like as well. So if you want to discover Ubuntu Magazine, please visit the website ubuntumagazine.com. All the magazines are free and available online, so go check it out there and find the magazine that you are most interested in. Enjoy!
Hello, and welcome back to Story Impact Podcast with me, your host, Jack Cole. So today I'm joined by Manon Verijt, who's joining us from the Netherlands. There you go, thumbs up. So welcome, Manon. Thank you so much for offering us some of your time today. Start by telling us a little bit about your background and how Ubuntu Magazine was started.
Well, thank you, Jack, for having me and for inviting me on this lovely podcast. So, my name is Manon, as you just mentioned, and I have a background in applied biology. So, I knew from a very young age that I had a passion for anything nature, starting with catching mice when my cat got one from the forest and releasing it and putting it back into the wild, to joining this study or choosing this study to really, well, deepen my knowledge of the field. But I also realized one thing when I was doing my studies, and that is I am not a researcher. Um, in all honesty, I don't see myself working anywhere in the same spot for the next 20 years. And it frightens me a bit to think that I might be stuck in a place um, without being able to travel or kind of follow my ambitions or other passions that might arise. So when I was in this realization period of, okay, I'm not going to do what the most of the people do from the studies. What am I going to do? I was in a bit of a pickle. And it was actually during the Future for Nature award show, which is a conservation award in the Netherlands, that I realized stories are really important. So there was this conservationist on the stage that had her story about working in Iran in like really dangerous environments. And still, she wanted to protect the animals in that habitat. And I knew, and I asked myself, if this story resonates so much with me, then why isn't it out there? Like, why is there only 100 people next to me in this, well, this auditorium or this room listening to this story, rather than it being shared broadly on the news, on Instagram, LinkedIn, whatsoever? So after a couple of years of thinking and trying to match the puzzle pieces together, I decided I could be, well, maybe the spider in the web, basically, of sharing these stories of the people who do the really cool and important work. I've always loved writing. I've always loved photography. So it made sense for me to kind of combine those passions and start a magazine. But I also didn't want to travel because traveling isn't sustainable, and I wanted to do everything as sustainable as possible. So the photography went to the side a bit, and I've ever since asked people to, well, deliver their own photographs. But that's how Ubuntu Magazine came to be in 2021. Just as an idea, like, hey, maybe these are the puzzle pieces that we can connect together. Um, I'm really starting it as a project, as an experiment. Can we bring this idea to life? So from a passionate young girl with a mouse in her hands to the magazine as it is today, that's a very short way of saying how we got here.
Lovely introduction. So tell us more about Ubuntu and its the overall vision and the ethos.
So, as I said, it's all about the stories from the people in the fields. And the most important realization I had when I was in that room with this conservationist during her talk was that it's not the actual work that she does that really resonated with me, but her emotions, like how it felt to be in danger constantly and how she still pushed through to do her work, to do the important things. Um, and these emotions, these feelings, these experiences, they connect you to the conservationist out there or to someone else in the field much more than a story about administration and numbers and stuff like that ever will. So Ubuntu Magazine really focuses on the personal stories. Um, and it's what I love most, honestly. So I'm a big, well, I think I'm the perfect audience for my own magazine, if you can say it like that, which is often a good thing when you have a business. Um, so that's what we really focus on. And then we want to do things as sustainably as possible. So when I said we don't travel, that's one of the things. We publish it online. We want to reach as many people as possible so that, well, people like me in their early stages of their career or early stages of their conservation career, if they're, well, switching from their jobs, they get a sense of encouragement and also a knowledge of what is out there. Because I mean, there's so much to discover. And I think I only know less than 1% of the jobs that are out there in the conservation field. So these are the things we strive to achieve and to share.
And could you tell us a little bit more about the specifics of actually putting the magazine together in terms of from idea to finding perhaps some maybe some friends or colleagues to spark, and then how you physically put things together as a magazine, finding
Yeah,
your first stories and so forth?
definitely. So the very first stories, I mean, I was just out of college, basically. These were really people from my own network. So I'd been to some classes or public readings from people in the conservation sphere. And I just asked them, can I interview you for the magazine? So that was very small, very simple, I would almost say. Nowadays, we do a lot of desk research. So luckily, we have a team of volunteers, including Julia, who does all this desk research for me, for us. Um, and what she does is she just looks for conservation organizations, for people out there that don't have the resources to tell their own stories. So usually we end up with smaller organizations or individuals, not like WWF or Sea Shepherd. Occasionally they do come by, but mostly we focus on the smaller ones. And then we have a big team of journalists. So as soon as Julia has found an organization that is suitable for us, we will ask, hey, are you okay with the interview? We ask our team of journalists who is interested in this specific topic. And if we found the right person, they take over communications. They host a call just like we are doing today, online, so that they can, yeah, do the interview and get the information they need. And after that, there's a long period of writing and editing before it goes to the graphic design team. And that's 3 people at the moment, so 2 graphic designers and our art director who take care of the visual makeup of the magazine. And I'm there by the sideline, checking if everything is going according to plan with the right deadlines and if we're, well, in the end, ready to publish the full magazine. And that's what we do every quarter. So every 3 months, there's a new cycle of approximately 13 articles with a team of 10 journalists. So it's, yeah, hands-on work, but
Mhm.
it's very rewarding.
Fantastic. And then putting all this together, what have been some of the challenges or things you might not have expected? Or what things went well that were quite surprising?
Um, well, things that have been going well, I mean, people are generally so kind and full of passion when they talk about their stories. So this feels like a concept that works, having people tell their personal stories alongside, of course, the bits and the ins and out of their organization. So that's a positive thing. When it comes to the more difficult things, I mean, it's going to be so cliche, but funding is one of the things that we're currently struggling with. So we've been working for 4 years now, doing this all voluntarily. So with a team of 25 volunteers, including myself. And there's just a lot of time and effort going into creating a magazine that is as it is today. And we would love to, well, pay people something, create a more sustainable future for ourselves as an organization. So that's one of the things that we are, yeah, trying to cover basically. And there's also a whole new world out there or in this organization for myself, which is called team management. I mean, you start something and you think, okay, we're going to work together with some journalists, with some graphic designers. And that's all fun in the beginning. But then people want to leave or people have questions, or you have to hire new people. And it's just a steep learning curve, to be honest, because you have to say no to people if they don't fit your brand or your values. You have to let go of people if they don't, well, do their job well enough. Um, so these are the hard bits of running an organization, not by yourself, but with a full team of volunteers. Yeah, I would
Nice.
say that's the most difficult thing that I hadn't anticipated on beforehand.
The people in
Mm-hmm.
general. And so, what are some of these stories from within the magazine that you publish that stand out to you as particularly memorable?
So the first one I had to think of or have to think of is Wild and Trust. So about 2 years ago, I was in Botswana myself, and we really tried to see African wild dogs, which are just a fascinating species. They are beautiful. They're a bit quaint with how they look. Um, and I never knew much about the species. And when I already left Botswana, I was presented with a story from Wild and Trust. And actually, this is really showing um, the touching side of conservation and research, because conservation cannot happen without research, but often we focus on the conservation side of the stories. And this time we decided to focus on the research side of the story. And what they're doing in Botswana is they have artificial scents. So um, a wild dog, an African wild dog, might go to a latrine as a place where they, well, pee or rub their scent against something to let other African wild dogs and other animals know this is my area. Don't come near me, or I am here, and I'm looking to mate. They're just trying to send out all these signals. But because the African wild dogs are endangered, there are not enough populations to talk to each other basically through these scents. So African wild dogs venture further and further, even into towns, which of course creates a lot of tension with local communities. And they knew they had to do something to stop these African wild dogs from venturing further into the wild and also into civilization. And now they've created artificial scents, so lab-made scents, basically, that kind of present themselves as being, hey, we're a different population. So in these latrines or these places where the wild dogs come to sniff, if there's another population, they will put the artificial scent there, indicating that there will be another population or there is another population, but there isn't. So these wild dogs stay confined to their own area, thinking there is another population there, so we can't venture into their area. And that way they are really trying to save them so they don't venture into civilization anymore, where they're being shot, killed, culled, hunted, whatever. Um, so it's a really good thing, and they're expanding their research now to other species as well, leopards, elephants. So yeah, it's I think it's groundbreaking and really, really interesting. Um, Another one, which is less fun to talk about, is the golden toad, which was in one of our last magazines, issue 15. And the golden toad is extinct. So it's not a fun story to really talk about, but it's a very interesting one because it's about two brothers that grew up with their father being a biologist, and their father told them about this toad, about this frog. And when they finally went to Costa Rica themselves, because they're from the USA, they went in search of the golden toad and tried to discover the story behind this extinction. Like, what what went on there, and does the golden toad and its story still live on within the community? And they actually published a book named The Golden Toad that, well, tells the whole story of what they did in Costa Rica. Um, and it's more like a mystery murder trope book, which I think is quite cool. I haven't read it myself, but it's on my list. Um, but yeah, the way one of our journalists, Nathan, covered this was really new and refreshing, and I think so important if we want to, well, make sure that not more species of toads will go extinct in the near future. So those are two that yeah, that are on top of mind and which I think are just so cool to share.
And when you, oh sorry, and when the magazine first started going, you mentioned that you sort of reached out to some journalists or stories around you. What were some of those really early ones that you can remember?
So I listened to a story from which was about wild dogs actually. It's very funny. The painted dog conservation. So the nickname basically for African wild dogs is painted dogs because it just seems like someone, well, got their pencil and drew some circles and some dots, and they are very funny looking, as I said. So I knew a guy working with them in Zimbabwe, and I interviewed him. I also interviewed some people more in the tourism sphere of things, so less conservation focused, but really focused on like sustainable tourism, and how do we become aware of our impact when we travel across the world. And I must say, because we were experimenting in the very beginning, I was always scared of the word like choose your niche and really dive deep into one thing. So I kind of pulled it into a broader like sustainable tourism and conservation bubble. But really quickly we decided no, we really have to go for conservation because there's many stories to be told, and yeah, it's gonna be fine even if we choose to focus. Um, so in the very first magazines, we also had stories about like a naturalist guide in, I believe it was Costa Rica or Ecuador. Um, yeah, stuff like that, or how to buy more sustainably. So it has definitely shifted in the past 4 years.
Brilliant. So when someone, a reader, is working through your magazine, what are some of the things you want them to take away? Is it more, as you mentioned there, like kind of a natural guide? So it's kind of what you can see in Costa Rica or Ecuador. Is it a little bit more skills focused and sort of career perhaps, or is it all of that? Have you add in sort of different projects and initiatives with various species?
So it really depends. Like I think we had a couple of issues, maybe around issue, let's say 7, 8, 9, so 2 years in, that were really quite similar, all of them. They were like, okay, there's this one person working in an organization, and what does he or she do, and how did he or she get there? And that would be the personal anecdote of either I grew up with a fascination for nature, hence I am here right now, or no, I wanted to do something very different, but well, my path led me here and it was unexpected. So there was two sides to the story, but they were all very similar. Right now we have a bunch of different things. We always cover some smaller columns, like new to nature, species that were discovered in the past 5 years, endangered species to really highlight the species that are endangered at the moment. We have an infographic with a complex theme or topic, but then explained in an easy way with a lot of visuals. We have an introduction. We try to have a column that repeats itself, so not like repetitive information. But for example, for the past 4 issues, we've had a column about actually one of our volunteers who's becoming a wilderness guide herself. So what happens when you follow a course like that? How has she developed throughout that course? Stuff like that to show that even small actions can really, yeah, make a change in your life, and that small steps can make a lot of impact. And then we have about 8 to 10 bigger articles that range from a book review to a personal story. Yeah, anything. And it really depends on the people that we interview, what is coming out. So I think similarly to your podcast, we let the people talk and then decide based on their information what would be the right approach for the story, rather than coming up with a frame that they have to fill and questions that they have to answer. Um, it goes very authentically and it flows, and yeah, we just see where it goes throughout those 3 months of creating the article.
Fantastic. Brilliant. No, it actually does mirror a lot of our sort of approach, which is just sort of leave it to the inspired person in front of us to kind of share the news and good stories. Okay, so that brings us on nicely to my next question, which is what are we expecting in the next issue?
So there's actually quite some nice ones coming up, and I say that each and every issue, of course. But one really interesting one is we're going to talk about Przewalski horses. Um, it's a very difficult to pronounce name of species, of course, but these are the horses when you think about wild horses. And I just well, I think it's phenomenal to think about these animals roaming the, if I pronounce correctly, Horto Bari National Park in Hungary. So we're gonna hear all about that story soon, and I'm really curious to see like what they're doing to help conserve these species because yeah, horses, I mean, if you think about horses, they're wild, they're untamed. How does that work? So I'm really curious to see which approach they are using. Um, then we're talking about a campaign in Zambia, not even focusing specifically on the conservation work, but really on a campaign that they're running. And it's called the Pangolin Demand Reduction Campaign because pangolins are currently being poached and used within, well, the traditional communities. Um, and they're using traditional healers and leaders. So within these communities, mostly remote, tribal, uh, they have a lot of influence to the community. So people will go to a traditional healer and say, I um, don't want my wife to cheat on me. How do I establish this? Or how do I make sure that's not going to happen? And they say, well, wear this pangolin scale in your pocket all day through, and your wife won't cheat on you. Um, there's a lot of stories like this, and I'm just trying to quote what I heard in the interview. So it might be difficult or different in the story when it's published, but that is what I remember. So these things, they are working with these traditional healers and leaders, telling them and explaining to them why pangolin poaching is so bad for the environment and for biodiversity and why they should really, well, decline any pangolin offers basically if they're offered new pangolins for their services. Um, and so far they've had a really good result. It's a very new campaign, but Mena from WCP, who we talked to, said it was already like a positive result so far. So yeah, I'm only hoping for them that this will continue to be a success throughout the country. And then we're going to talk about Siamese crocodile conservation in Asia, so Laos, Cambodia, which I think is awesome because we don't have that many organizations in Asia in comparison to, for example, Europe or Africa. So it's good to venture into that part of the world and to hear something more about the species there. Um, well, back to Africa, we're talking about an ecological inventory in Congo. And I mean, just thinking about this alone is imagine yourself in the jungle in Congo. I mean, I see your background, Jack. It's quite dense. It must be quite scary to walk through, and it must be even harder to find all the species that live and thrive there. So to do an ecological inventory to figure out which species are present must be quite the endeavor. So we're going to talk to Jorik van den Hoef, who's going to tell us all about how they achieved that last year, and hopefully also a bit of their results, like which species they came across. Um, yeah, and as I said, we have the standardized items, new to nature, about the maiden hair tree, which is also known as ginkgo. Um, then we have the infographic about the clean 15 and dirty dozen, which is about food consumption. So there's lots of things coming back that I think will be interesting. And they're diverse enough that if people are not interested in Przewalski's horses, that they can find another article that might interest them. So yeah, there's about 120 pages, and I think it should, yeah, be suitable for anyone looking for something interesting.
Brilliant. So it's quite comprehensive.
It
Um,
is, yeah.
yeah,
That's why it takes so much work.
yeah, of course. And just to let you know, that yes, this is a nightmare to walk through. My house is about here, and the office is here. So I'm joking. I'm in Peckham. I'm in South London. But all right. So just very quickly. Brilliant. I should have asked this at the beginning. What does Ubuntu mean? What does it stand for?
Yeah, that's a good question. It means I am because we are. It depends on who you ask, actually, because there are a variety of explanations for it. It's a word from South Africa, from the townships, and people use it to really express their sense of community. So if I would kind of lay it upon myself or explain it through myself, I am the person I am today because of my parents, how they treated me, because of the school I went to, because of my neighbors. all the people surrounding me have shaped me into who I am and what I value and how I behave and how I think. So I am because we are thinking about your own surroundings. And when I heard it, I thought to myself, well, I am also the person I am because of the fact that I grew up in a national park, which I think is quite, well, cool to say. But it has really shaped me. I always went into the forest, looking at the birds, looking at the deer, the foxes, um, going out any chance I had just to observe and to enjoy. Um, and that's why I care so much. So for people growing up in cities and being confined in well, buildings and blocks and gray matter, um, they are the way they are because they grew up in a situation that is very different to mine. And I think if we can all change that a little bit and bring more green into our, well, direct surroundings, even if that's through a magazine that they read online and hopefully one day in print, um, I hope we can shape the people to care more. And that's, of course, a very big and audacious goal. But maybe the magazine can contribute even the tiniest bit to, yeah, help shape these people to what they value.
Fantastic. And lastly, Manon, when can we expect the next issue?
So
And
we just,
yeah, and where can people find
sorry.
it? Of course. No, no, absolutely. So where can
So
people
yeah,
find it and what's going to be in it?
definitely. Yeah, so we had a recent launch at the beginning of November. So, I mean, the new magazine has just come out and there's still lots to discover there. And the new magazine, issue 16, is going to be published on the first Friday of February. So still 2 months to go and to wait. Um, and then where can they find it? So it's very easy actually. UbuntuMagazine.com is our website. And then the first page says, do you want to read the magazine? You click the button and you'll be transferred to issue.com, which is where we publish it. And people can just open it, read through it, really browse it as if it's a magazine. So it's literally 2 clicks away from this podcast to the magazine.
Brilliant. Manon, thank you so much for your time.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you, Jack. Ubuntu Magazine is the magazine you want to read if you're interested in nature conservation. We publish Ubuntu Magazine every quarter, in February, May, August, and November, which means that you have enough stories to read year-round. Our magazines are filled with 10 to 15 stories, 10 of those usually from conservationists in the field on the front lines, and about 5 of those the continuous articles that always come back, such as New to Nature, which highlights a new species recently discovered, the endangered species that are on the IUCN Red List, so which definitely need protecting. We have our infographic, always uncovering a new topic and trying to make it understandable for you and everyone else. And then of course we have our column, which comes back, which is a new topic every time, but it's a fun subject and we want to make sure that you learn as much as you can. So Ubuntu Magazine is there for all of us interested in nature conservation, in nature in general, in taking care of our planet the best that we can. And to do so, we share the personal stories from people who are working to protect it. For example, Akaz, who was living or is living in Angola and wanted to become a doctor. Yet somehow fate pushed him in the direction of conservation, and now he is super successful in sea turtle conservation on the coast of Angola. And there's plenty of stories like these that are definitely worth your while if you want to check it out. Ubuntu can be watched online and for free, so visit ubuntumagazine.com and open the magazine of your choice. I hope you enjoy.